Hey everybody, it's Tim Sackett coming back to you with another episode of HR Famous. And I got one of the OGs with us today, Jessica Lee, the head of global talent at Marriott. It's actually, your title is way more than that because I know you have multiple.
It's so
titles.
long.
So give us the dictionary title.
The dictionary title is Global Officer of Talent Acquisition and Associate Growth, which is just a mouthful. It's like head of TA and learning. That's all.
Yeah, head of TA and learning. Just a small little job. That's crazy. Jessica, it's been a while since you've been on. And it's also been a while since you've been back in TA because you started, you've kind of had a career like me, like you kind of bounced forth like TA, HR, kind of like people would consider HR like in learning and stuff like this. But you've been back running a global TA team. It's been, 6 years, you said, since you've been back in TA?
Yeah. Time has flown. And by the way, when you call me an OG, like the kids these days don't know what the O and G stand for. Like if you call someone an OG, they don't know. It's weird.
So they call you Unc? Is that that's the Unc, right?
I don't know. Is that what they're calling me? Oh no.
You'd have to ask your kids if they heard of what Unc means, which is basically just uncle, right? It means older. Like it's funny, like how the language changes from these kids, saying that. Original gangster of the HR
some people think
podcast.
It's like old girl. Oh, she's the old girl of whatever, and I'm like, well.
By the way, I never would have thought that. I never would have said that. Yeah, that's so funny. But so 6 years. Was there anything that surprised you coming back into the TA world after 6 years? Because I mean, you keep your ear to the ground regardless, and you obviously have been talking with KD and I. But I'm wondering, like, once you got into the weeds of it, what surprised you?
Yeah. There are things that surprise me as far as some things never change. And then there are things that surprise me around like, oh man, this is exciting. So like when I think about things that I'm starting to dig back into, like recruiting is recruiting. At the end of the day, people are still grappling with how to manage their hiring managers. Like what's the best way to go and source? Is sourcing even really a thing? And so like some of these classic challenges, like for me to have conversations with a recruiter around trying to manage some of their hiring managers and stakeholders, I'm like, oh, like these are classic things I know how to do and I've dealt with. So those things have never changed. But then like in the tech space, what's happening from an AI lens, all the amazing opportunities that are out there, like some of that has been like just very exciting and refreshing where I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I liked TA so much. So it's been fun getting back into it.
Yeah. And you guys, I mean, and again, I love sharing like the tech stack piece of this. So you're an Oracle shop that layers in Paradox in recruiting for your recruiting stack. Is there anything else that you guys are using besides those two main ones, those little ones?
I mean, yeah, those are like the core. There's some tools that, from like a sourcing lens or otherwise get layered in. But those are the core. And right now we're also looking at and in the process of layering in something from a no interview notes, digital interviewing perspective. And so that's very exciting. But that's the stack. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I mean, there's so much. Like, obviously there's so much energy around AI and also kind of like this crazy like risk and legal issues around AI, especially when we take a look at recruiting technology. And I think one of the things that you guys understood really early on is like, hey, we have this world-class brand from a consumer standpoint. So we can't mess that up. Like we have to be very careful. We can't be on the front page of the Wall Street Journal,
For sure.
And so you guys were very, very considered around like how you brought in AI, which is basically conversational apply and also kind of AI scheduling for interviews, which to me seems, now I want your perspective on this. It seems like that's almost zero risk or really low risk when it comes to like all the AI talk that we hear. I mean, is that what your feeling is on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if others talk about it in this way, but like for me, I feel like where we have inserted it and where it makes sense at the moment is really from like an automation perspective to make things more efficient, more speedy. I feel like where we have maybe a little bit more hesitancy and are really watching things is, when it's being used to make decisions versus just to
Yeah.
automate things. And
Yep.
yeah, I mean, the lawsuits keep happening. And so I think it's prudent for us to have drawn that line. But I'm eager. That's the thing. Like, I feel like there is opportunity for people to get much more efficient and maybe support some of the decision making. Maybe, we got to figure out the right line of when it's making
Yeah.
decisions. But automation versus decision making is probably like the gist of where we've drawn the line.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I do think that that's one of the issues is just we still have so much education around AI in our space because I think you have AI automation and then you have like this AI big language, like decision making arm that is becoming the problem. And I think like there's still so many ways within recruiting. And like you talked about coming back and seeing the foundational aspects of recruiting, so many ways we can still use AI to help automate and make those recruiters even bigger and better than what they are when you go back to that foundational piece. And I know you've had to hire a lot of recruiting talent, and you talked about like, hey, bringing in this kind of zero note interviewing, which in my aspect goes, that just makes again the recruiter having that much more capacity. Because I know traditionally when I would recruit, you spend most of your time heads down, not really listening. I mean, you're listening to what they're saying, but you're also trying to capture everything. And so there's a
Yeah.
loss. There's a lot. You're not having a real conversation. And ultimately, what we want is recruiters having real conversations with, the talent.
100%, 100%. I mean, I am a fast typer. I'm a fast scriber if I were doing it on paper, but just the amount of like energy you're pouring into trying to capture and like collect versus really listen and engage in a conversation. And maybe most importantly for me, like draw things out because like maybe that candidate is nervous. Maybe they didn't understand what you asked. And so like the art of conversation, the art of listening completely gets lost, which is one of the things I'm so excited about. If we can leverage some of these tools to capture what's happening in the interview. The other thing is like I just have thought about honestly as a hiring manager, like in the past handful of years when I've been away from TA, the amount of time a poor recruiting coordinator has spent chasing me to capture my interview notes and collect those things from me.
Yeah.
Like that should be no one's job to be like chasing a hiring manager to get notes and collect those things. And so I am so excited about what's going to come with some of this tech.
Yeah.
So it's going to be
The
huge.
AI interview tech for me is so fascinating, and I've like been following it and been invested in it for like the last 5 or 6 years, or if more. And I think one of the things I look at is like you said, is like if I can capture these conversations, and then I can use AI to say, hey, as a hiring manager now, let's say I had, or a coordinator, I had 5 screens. I want to be able to send this on to a hiring manager, and that then AI can like say, hey, here's the highlight of every screen, right? That happened. Or like from a hiring manager perspective and from a risk due diligence perspective of saying, are my hiring managers asking the same questions of the same people? And AI can kind of help me track all that, make sure people are staying in the bumpers and, in bounds with all that. And then go back and like really start to go and build, this kind of synopsis of, hey, here's everything that's happened. Here's what this candidate said to the coordinator. Here's what they said maybe to the first screen. Here's what they said in the other interview. And by the way, they're actually changing their story as they go and things of that sort. Like the what could happen with this interview technology to me blows my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like an effectiveness bit, like separate from the efficiencies, like the effectiveness bit, I think is really interesting around
Yeah.
how do you know that like the questions you're asking are effective and
Yeah.
having data around that, I think is really amazing. And then I think the effectiveness of a hiring manager and a recruiter, like how do you help them to sharpen the skill so that they are getting to better outcomes? Like there's no way to know that unless you're sitting in on interviews and you have like all that time in the world to sit in on every single interview. And so the fact that tech has the potential to help us with that and really help like our recruiters be better at their jobs. Like I just think from like a skill development perspective, it's really exciting. So I can't wait.
Yeah. That's awesome. So Jay, I want to dig in a little bit to in the weeds a little bit on the process stuff. Like you guys obviously support, is it over 8,000 hotels, right? In terms of their hourly
Almost
hiring.
10,000.
10,000 hotels,
I know, it's
which is
wild.
it's a crazy large number. So when we talk about high volume hiring, what we see, all the data shows us that applications have doubled at least, right, in terms of these jobs. When you think about those GMs or those managers on site at these hotels, these properties that have to do the hiring, how are you guys making sure they're getting only what they need to get and not getting just swamped with like hundreds and hundreds of applications?
Yeah. Yeah, the volume is a thing for us. And it's funny because I've talked to some folks in the media recently who were saying, like, oh, like, or is the travel industry, still facing issues like with people being attracted to, this space? Do they want to work in hotels? And I'm like, have you seen our application numbers? 100% they want to. Like, we got millions of people coming to our career site. And so, yes, like we have a volume issue. And we're not using AI necessarily to help screen and make decisions
Yeah.
and whittle down. So for us, I mean, we're still, traditional in some regards, but like I don't want a GM or a hiring manager to have to sift through all the things. So we shortlist and give them a slate. But the way that we get there is we use screening questions as a part of the application process to really make
Yeah.
sure we understand, like, are they even, do they meet the basic job qualifications that we're looking
Yeah.
for? And then we use assessments as a big part of the way that we whittle it down. And just, these are all tools to help us prioritize. And then obviously someone still has eyes on resumes to make the decision. But even like things like screening questions, assessments, like when I think about like back in the day when I had a rec load and I was looking at resume after resume after resume, I mean, giving people some of these things to help them prioritize and get to shortlist
Yeah.
is really how we do it. But the interesting thing of it is, and this is where recruiters are having to manage their hiring managers all the time, is we still have hiring managers who are like, well, weren't there hundreds? Like, why these three? Like, I want to see everyone. And so
I know.
even
Yeah.
though we're trying to get efficient
It's
and help them, they still want to see everyone. It's like that's actually one of the things that was surprising to me is like hiring managers are still asking you to see everyone. Like that's an
yeah.
issue. Like this is
Yeah.
like age old.
I
As
know.
far back as recruiting goes, they're
You're
still
trying to
in that place.
show them, like, from a big data number standpoint, statistically, here's what we're trying to do to help you. And does that mean that the people we didn't send you, that there's not good hires in there? No, there probably is statistically, right? From a mass standpoint, we know we might have a few false positives here or there, but in reality, the amount of savings that we're giving you in terms of time and, instead of going, hey, here's 20 really good people, instead of, hey, here's all 200. Like, it's just in a
Yeah.
crazy, like, you have to have some kind of filtering mechanism that makes sense. It is brings up a good point, because we were talking about kind of this AI matching, and you said, hey, we use assessments, and like for decades we've used pre-employment assessments, and they've been validated with PhDs and all of this stuff, and we feel really good about them. So really what we're saying is, hey, assessments in humans were the original black box, and we trust that completely, but we don't trust this AI black box over here. And I'm just thinking, really, humans are like the most dangerous black box we have, right? Because
Yeah.
we can't really open them up and know what they're thinking. And yet with AI, we can, but we have all these problems. So again, bigger topic for like the government and legal people to figure out than you and I. But like, I always think that's amazing from that standpoint when we take a look at it.
Yeah, but the thing is, I feel like for me and many employers, I don't know that it's we don't trust it. I think that what we don't trust is that we're not going to get sued for it. And I think
Yeah.
that like there is really more of an issue of like the broader world, job seekers, the media have
We're
placed some distrust in it, right? Like I
100.
actually think
Yeah.
I trust it, but I don't. I know that job seekers don't, and there's going to be another lawsuit, and there's going to be another lawsuit. So I feel
Yeah.
like there's like a trust transparency issue
It's
that's actually
super.
bigger, but it's not on our part; it's on like the
Yeah.
public's part.
It is, like, candidates, they want to know what they're being measured against, which I think is funny, because you're like, just because you took an assessment that you knew the question being asked still doesn't know you're not an IO psychologist. You can't figure out what you're really being measured against, but somehow they think they do. So there is a little bit of that transparency of saying, hey, when I took this assessment that is validated and has gone through all the rigor, somehow I'm not going to question that, even though I would always have managers, like when I was at Applebee's and we would test millions of candidates, I would always have managers go, well, my cousin took this and didn't do well, and I think it's BS and blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, oh, okay. Hey, I'm not saying that your person couldn't be a good hire. I'm just saying statistically they might not be, based on how they answer these questions. And it's hard when you start talking big math like that to try to get, that's my always thing with the assessments. And I think this is that way with the black box AI algorithms, is when you pull one individual out of all this, it's going to fail every time, because you're not looking at one individual. You're looking at millions or thousands, or like
Yeah.
big numbers, right? You're looking at statistics. You're not looking at one. And I think that's where the public isn't, they don't understand that side of it like that we do, which I think is problematic,
Yeah.
Anyways,
By the
Jay,
way, like
yeah,
inside baseball thing, another company got sued recently, right? But I
yeah,
saw in my LinkedIn feed yesterday another podcaster post about the lawsuit. And then
yeah.
right next to it, right below it, was a sponsored post from that company that got sued trying to tell me about their technology. And I was like, this is like the technology is good, but the algorithms aren't that
uh,
good. Something's weird here. I was like, this is strange.
it's so funny. Yeah, I will say too, like the PR comms on all this too. Like these companies have to invest way more in their PR and comms people because some of the stuff that's coming out is way too fast and is not reflective of like how the public is feeling. And so you're just kind of
Ugh.
like, hey, slow down a little bit. Let's think about this.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right.
I wanted to ask you, like, and I think I saw you like before the holidays, and we got to have some face to face time. And I'm enamored by how people like you measure the success of such a large function. Because I think traditionally, and you go back and 6 years ago, like the main way we measured success was, oh, it's time to fill. It just has to be faster. The faster, faster, faster. If it's only faster, it's better. And I was like, that's not true, right? But there is a component of fast when it comes to high volume. So, but I'm just wondering, how have you evolved your thinking, your measurement around what is TA success? So when you go and your board or your C-suite says, hey, Jessica, let us know that we think that you have the train on the tracks and everything's running well. What are those things that you would want to show them and let them know?
Yeah. I mean, I do believe speed still matters, but maybe
For sure.
for, I don't know, like the same reasons, or I guess I don't know what other people may be thinking, but I do love time to fill still. And there might be certain parts of like the ruler stick that I care about more than others, but like speed matters to me from the perspective of, like, I think in a frontline type of environment, like speed is our friend for getting
Yeah.
that candidate before the hotel down the street gets them. So,
Yeah.
as much as we can speed up the process, get offers made as quickly as possible, if not on the spot, like that helps us. But speed can't be at the in a sacrifice to quality. So I care a lot about quality, and so quality for me though comes out through data, like quick quits and turnover. So we
Yeah.
are hiring the right people if our quick quits are low, if our turnover is low, and all of that is in service to making sure that it's not disruptive to the business. And so speed for me, turnover, and then I think the other thing around quality, separate from turnover, is retention and movement of people. Like what people are staying with us, and are they staying within the world of Marriott and moving on to other things? So
Yeah.
internal growth is like another marker, but I still
Yeah.
go back to some of those classics for sure. And then the last thing I would still layer in that I certainly am paying attention to is cost, because as all this new tech comes into the fold, like it's not like there's this endless pot of money that anyone's given me saying you can spend all you want to spend for your employer brand efforts, for your new AI tech you want to bring into
Yeah.
the fold. And so the more I can lower the cost, the more I can fold these other things in. And so some of those classics are still really important to me.
Jay, define quick quits for you guys. What does that mean?
Oh, yeah. So for us, we think of quick quits as people who resign within the first 90 days. And that can also mean people who don't show up for day one. So,
Yeah. That's actually pretty
at that crucial
robust.
time
Because
period.
I know a lot of companies that would do quick quits would be like first week, right? Like they would be like,
Yeah.
that's a problem. Because some people don't even, I mean, again, you're talking like quick serve restaurants, stuff like that, where the turnover is so massive, they're lucky to get somebody for 90 days, right? So for
That's
them, like
true.
that wouldn't even be that. So it's interesting. Like that's a pretty robust metric for quick quits, is to say, hey, if they last 90 days, that's probably a decent quality hire, from that standpoint. And
Yeah.
again, we're not talking about performance. We're talking about on the quality of, kind of applicant standpoint of what that might
Yeah.
be. I think it's super interesting.
But by the way, just back to the start of your question, like there's nuance with any of these metrics. And
Yeah.
so what we talk about often internally is if you look at our time to fill in our luxury hotels, it is higher than it is in our other hotels. And people might say, well, like, that's not good. But if you also look at the metrics of our luxury hotels, their turnover is lower. And so what we have,
Guest
correlated
service
is,
scores are higher,
yeah, they spend more time trying to hire the right and best person. And so their time to fill is longer, but it's also resulting in lower turnover. And so you have to find like the right sweet spot between the two.
that you
And
bring
it's
up
not
a
going to be the
really
same everywhere.
you bring up a really interesting thing because we take a look at that, there probably is like a perfect kind of like you might be able to look at some of your hotels and go, well, that manager's eye for quality is a little low because they're going so fast. And so if we
Yeah.
can raise that up, even if it's like, let's say it went from like 7 days to 9 days, and when you go, look, all of our data shows like if you just take a couple of more days, your tenure goes up by 25% or whatever that might be. To me, that's the really awesome way that we can use AI and start connecting all these things and looking at data around TA success versus just going faster, better, faster,
Yeah.
better. And you're like,
Yeah.
again, yeah, faster is super important because we have to fill these shifts and we have to have all the people we need on to make sure our guests feel comfortable and can meet all their needs. But at the same time, sometimes going so fast, you kind of lose that quality. So I like that.
Yeah. Well, and the
You
other
brought it.
thing just on that one, because I'll draw this one out just a little bit further, it's
Yeah.
like spending a little bit more time may also mean like who's involved in the process. So in our luxury hotels, it's really a norm that the general manager, who is the CEO of that hotel, as crazy as it sounds, they have eyes on every single hire before they're made, whether it's a housekeeper, a front desk person, or a director of accounting. Like they have to be involved in the process, which is what drags it out. And so sometimes it might be like, it seems like, oh, we're putting these people through more hoops, but for us in certain situations, like it matters.
I know you can't like guarantee this for every candidate, every hotel, whatever. But when you take a look at the process that you guys have built with like Paradox, like what's the norm? If I'm a candidate and I apply, it takes me X minutes, right, to apply. And then I probably go through the assessment, and then I probably get, if I pass that assessment, or I in a range of, I pass that assessment, I probably get a link or something to like apply to a job. I mean, not apply for or schedule an interview. So give me like what you believe like is a baseline for an average Marriott candidate in terms of how long should it take them to apply to the point where they would actually schedule the interview.
Yeah. So, where we're using Paradox, because we're still in the process of rolling it out globally, there's some pockets that we're bringing online still. The average of what we see is that they go through the application process, and if we have done a paper screen, we've prioritized them, we think that they're viable. We'll engage them via Paradox to schedule an interview. And so it takes usually within 15 minutes or less that we text them that the interview then gets scheduled, which is pretty amazing if you consider,
I was
the
waiting, I was waiting for you to say like 5 days or something. 15 minutes is
no,
insane.
15 minutes to get the interview scheduled. And so
That is insane. That is insane.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you take out all of that like telephone tag that takes
Yeah.
place. So 15 days, and
15
then
minutes. Yeah.
15. Oh, yeah, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, 15 minutes. And then from the point that like that engagement has happened, usually the interview takes place within 3 days.
Yeah.
And so we're completing interviews within 3 days. And so all this is like allowing us to really get
Really move.
speedy. And
Yeah.
like what we've seen with Paradox is it's about a 15-day reduction in time to schedule interviews, 17-day reduction in time to fill. So it's like a 40% increase in speed to hire. I mean, those are phenomenal
Yeah.
stats. And that's why we believe in it. Like it allows us to be efficient, be speedy, and get like
Yeah.
great people in the door.
That's crazy. I want to talk a little bit about these frontline workers because you and I both started our careers there, right? I think you were a McDonald's person, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't McDonald's, but I was
McDonald's.
another like semi fast food, like diner kind of person. That was my first job as well. And so when we take a look at these kind of like high volume jobs that we worked as kids, seems like a million years ago, into what
Don't
people
call
are
me
working.
old. Speak for yourself.
You're the OG. And so when we think about that in our aspect of like, has the worker mentality changed at all? Or do you feel it's basically the same from when we were there to what it is today. When someone says, "Hey," and again, Marriott's a unique brand, right? It's not a McDonald's or it's not something else. Not to say that McDonald's has a bad brand either. They're also a massive international brand, but I'm saying maybe a little bit different level. I guess I'm finding out is like, what does that worker look like for you guys that comes in into those jobs? And do you think like it's basically the same as it has been, or has it evolved a little bit?
Yeah, I think it has evolved, but I would say like you got to bucket the people in a few distinct groups. Like there are the casuals who aren't really looking for a career; they're doing this on the
Yeah,
side because they're
yeah,
trying to figure
yeah,
their life out. And so there's the casuals. You've got like the OGs that are like I don't know, 50, 60-year-old housekeeper or engineer, and like they want the job. They know this is the space they're in.
yeah.
And then you have, let's say, Gen Z, which is just a whole other population. So, like, I think you got to bucket them a little bit differently. But what we're seeing out of those groups is different for sure. And we're definitely having to respond to things differently because of that. So, for some of these populations, maybe this is universal for all, the expectation and desire around flexibility is not something that I think you or I would have expected or thought that we could demand when we
Oh
were
yeah,
first
yeah,
working in the front line, right? So the idea
yeah,
that some roles could be hybrid, that schedules and shifts should be more fluid than as static as like, here's your schedule, you work it.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's absolutely stuff we're having to contend with. The other thing I think is interesting, not just like unique to frontline, but we're really, able to really respond to in a positive way is like one of the biggest things I hear out of Gen Z, whether they work for us or they're interested in working for us, is like this desire to explore and collect experiences versus I see myself moving in a linear path from this spot to that spot and go
yeah.
vertically. So this idea to kind of explore, collect experiences, and then have those things cobbled together to become a career is something that we're seeing as well. But yeah, there are very interesting differences that they're throwing at us where we're having to figure out how do we position ourselves from an employer brand talent attraction perspective and then deliver on it once they're in the door. So it's an interesting time, I think.
No, I think it's so cool too that you talk about like the flexibility and scheduling really in industries in ways that we never thought. Growing up, it was always like, nope, you start at 7, you're done at 3, that's the shift. Or then you start at 3 and you're done at 11 and that's the shift. You either want it or you don't want it. And now like I've seen like all of these really cool kind of AI scheduling out there for managers who literally, if you were a really good GM in a hotel, like part of you being great at as just GM was this art of scheduling. and it was
The
there's a little
Tetris
bit of
game.
there's a little bit of science, a little bit of art. And now like the AI reaches out to all the employees and say, okay, here's what jobs can they do and what shifts are you open to and blah blah blah. And it all kind of mixes and all of a sudden you go, oh well, this person can work 2 hours here and 6 hours here and 4 hours here and just 1 hour here, but it actually works for everybody. It works for them, it works for us. We have the shifts covered when we need the people and they're with the right people. And like I see this across not just like, kind of hospitality, but we see this in manufacturing where again, you never would have thought you could have flexibility. And again, it's a different flexibility than like you or I, like where you're, working at home today. Yeah, like if you're a front desk person at a Courtyard, you probably can't work from home as a front desk person, but like, do we have more flexibility within that shift structure than traditionally was? I think is one of the coolest things that comes out of the technology. And I think the understanding of management as well and leadership of people, of being able to be more flexible than just rigid. We were so rigid. Like I think when you and I went through those environments that it was, here's the shift, you want it or not, and that was it.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And it was all about like for a people manager or supervisor, like optimizing labor and like they had their sheets of paper and they were stacking out the shifts and it was very, plug and play, very linear. And I also think, like, to your point, to have the competency of being able to effectively manage schedules and build shifts, like, it's so crazy to me that that is like a competency of a supervisor or a manager. So for
Or
us
that
to let
it had
managers,
to be, right? Yeah.
yeah, but it had to be. Yeah. So for people to be able to be like people managers versus managing shifts and schedules, I mean, I think that that's great. We're there.
Well, Jessica, I want to thank you for taking some time. Obviously, you're like one of my best friends, and so I love that we can come on and talk shop like this, and that you're willing to share such really, I think, great insight because there's so many people I think that are out there struggling to determine like what do they use, and how do they move forward in all of the things that we've talked about. So, how can people best reach you?
Oh, well, it would be LinkedIn. I think I'm, linkedin.com /in Jessica Lee. So that's the best place to catch me.
And we'll see you on the road at Unleash America in March. You'll be talking
Yeah.
there, and then maybe somewhere in the fall, and hopefully your construction will be done by then.
Yes, I don't like sitting in my basement, but I can't wait to be at Unleash. I'm going to be talking more about learning that side of my
Yeah.
job versus TA. Some of my crew is going to be at Erie Spring talking about our TA transformation. And yeah, we'll be at different places because we love telling our story. We've had great partners that have helped us get to this amazing machine that we now have. And by the way, great TA leaders before me who have made the magic happen and given me these gifts. But we're excited to tell the story.
Awesome. Thank you so much. For everybody, Tim Sackett, it's Jessica Lee. We are out. We will see you next time on HR Fame.